but the Championship is a good league. You have international players from all over. So we'll just have a quick word about it. In the graphic there, we have the top scorer in the Championship. He's with Blackburn Rovers, will be about maybe 9th or 10th. They might make the playoffs. I don't think they get promoted, but we have to wait and see. Sammy Smollett, he's qualified for Ireland. Now, he hasn't actually played a game. He's been called up to a few squads, but for some reason, either he's injured or his other just hasn't played. I also believe he's qualified for Hungary. He is 28 years of age. Hungary are sniffing around, but he's signing him up maybe for the Euros this summer. I don't know. But so just what are your thoughts on this Sammy Smollett and Blackburn Rovers?
I mean, the numbers speak for itself, Paul, in terms of Irish players this year. 26 appearances in the Championship, 16 goals. I mean, across all flights of English football, even in League One, League Two, is there an Irish player that has registered even into double figures this season in terms of that? And this form has been going on now for 6-7 months. It's consistent form at the top of the end. Top of the field for Blackburn Rovers, and he's really taken on the mantle of the departed Ben Brereton Diaz, who many people, Nottingham Forest fans, the Chilean felt, the Blackburn Rovers fans, the Chilean, they felt it couldn't be replaced. But he's scoring all types of goals, free kicks. He's scoring goals from outside the box, goals on the run, on the counter. He seems to have that sort of nimble sort of feet that Robbie sort of Keane sort of have in terms of the way he sort of plays that game. He's a little terrier. He's in your face and everything. So yeah, he's definitely been a bright spark. And by all due fairness, he should have got the call up by now. There were several occasions, maybe through maybe the last 4 or 5 months of Stephen Kenny's reign, where he could have capped him in terms of that, in terms of his form. He didn't. You mentioned about running the risk in terms of Hungary. I mean, the longer we go without an Irish manager, the more realistic it comes opportunity to play for Hungary, because at the end of the day, you mentioned, I'm not quite sure Hungary are in the Euros this year.
I think they are, as far as I know, I think they are with that. And of course, he is 28 years of age. So I'm saying, I'm not rolling him out, but he's coming, he's now into, like, give him a few, once he hits 30, you would say, so he might look for a short term. If people get, has he got a passport or not, but he's definitely qualified, and Hungary are in the Euros. So he might look at it. That's a big
lure. That's a big lure to play the European Championship. And I suppose, especially in Hungary, they're a team on the up at the moment. You have Szoboszlai at Liverpool, who's a really cracking player as well. And it looks like Hungary are a team that are improving. So can you say that would you put even Hungary probably ahead of Ireland in terms of the rankings at the moment? They're definitely on a par with each other, if not at the same level at the moment, for a player to pick or choose in terms of his aspirations. So we're unsure, because there hasn't never been any sort of public interaction with Sammy Smollett in terms of what his ambitions were. We've never seen him
Jim. He has turned up a few times to Irish squads, but for some reason he left again. He's saying there was some family situation that was the public, and so he has turned up 2 or 3 times on Irish squads, in fairness to him.
Yeah, so that's promising. That's promising in terms of that. So yeah, I mean, I just look at the other strikers, the most prominent strikers across for Irish football, and we look at Michael Obafemi with Burnley at the moment in the Premier League. Had a really good season with Swansea, got to move to Burnley when Burnley got promoted. He's not really getting a game. He's not getting a game with Burnley in the Premier League, and he was probably one of our standout players in Ireland in terms of saying, well, we're going to have Michael Obafemi, or we're going to have Chidozie Ogbene up front with Evan Ferguson. And even Chidozie now at Luton, he's coming more off the bench in terms of an impact role as well. So that's quite alarming. I see.
Jim, sorry, Jim. Just on the Championship now, there's another player called Tom Cannon, who I believe plays with Leicester City. He has played underage. I don't think he's played senior, but he's qualified for England, and there is some suggestion that he's going to, I think he was born in England, but qualified for Ireland underage, but then he's going to transfer, or he's not transfer the wrong word, he's going to declare for the country of his birth, England. Have you heard anything about that? Tom Cannon, he's a good striker, is he? Good player?
Yeah, Tom Cannon, he's a target man. He's sort of fairly prolific. But I think with some of these players, Paul, it's the England, there's a lure of playing under 21 international football for England, because there's a lure of potentially winning Euros and World Championships, because England underage at the moment in terms of the under 21 team is probably in the top 5 in the world at the moment in terms of the last 3 or 4 years. So there's a lure of maybe winning trophies in terms of that. But we've also seen guys who have played under 21 for England, and once they've in their final year of that, they've looked to sort of switch back when they realised that the senior team wasn't a possibility. And so I think that could be we could be seeing scenarios of that with Tom Cannon in terms of a short-term lure for under 21, which brings the whole thing into mockery, really. If players are deciding to themselves, right, I want to chase an under 21 championship, but then I know the opportunities aren't going to be there for me after under 21 with the first team, so with the national team at that grade, so I might switch back again. And I think we could see that. I think we could even see that happening with Rory Delap's son, Liam Delap, who's in his final year with England now in the under-21s, and it looks like he's flying with Hull City. It looks like after this year that might be end of his England career, and the talks are that he could actually switch back to Ireland again, given that promise with Rory, because the opportunity.
Jim, can I just come in there, Jim? Sorry, Jim. If Lee Carsley, who's the current England under-21 manager, gets the Irish job, and by all accounts he's favoured to get it, would that be a huge boost that these players would be more likely to play for Ireland in, or what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, there's familiarity breeds content in terms of that. And if you're used to someone and you're used to a situation and you're used to the scenario, yeah, it's definitely a sort of a plus. And there's probably 1 or 2 players further down the pipeline that he's aware of as well. But the biggest thing, as we all know, going from an under 21 international job into a senior international team without even being a first team club manager or a first team coach is a big task to take on. And in terms of, it's a whole different sort of ball game in terms of, we've seen so many I mean, the classic example was Brian Kerr, who's probably been the greatest underage manager Ireland has ever had. And even him himself found some of the tough days in terms of the senior job. So it's a different ball game. It's a different reality in terms of that.
Yeah, now, Jim, I just mentioned there, Bristol City are on the championship. You have Max O'Leary, the goalkeeper. You have Mark Sykes and Jason Knight. So Bristol City, there's a few Irish players coming through there. What are your just quick thoughts on that?
I like Jason Knight. I think he's a creative sort of player. He's certainly one that sort of can play in the hole off the front man. He's definitely got technical ability in terms of spraying the ball, in terms of passing the ball, in terms of that. He's probably, with Sammy Smodic, is probably the player that jumps off the list, and probably the target man. Then you've Sinclair Armstrong, Queen's Park Ranger, a big brute of a centre forward, old-fashioned forward, big physical man, big sort of presence in the air. Someone that maybe could cause opposing teams a bit of trouble in terms of balls out wide, crosses into the box, in terms of that. So yeah, he's got something about him in terms of that. So yeah, it's interesting. But some of the older guys as well, like Inda Stevens, like coming back from injury now, starting with Stoke City again. That's a boost for Ireland if we can get Inda fit. We all know what he did in the jersey in terms of the Irish jersey. So
Jim,
yeah,
sorry, Jim. I see Preston North End, which would be well known for producing players over the years, and would be a traditional English club there. You have like Alan Brown, Will Keane. Now I presume Robbie Brady's probably gone past it now, but Brown and Will Keane are international. So, and with a club like Preston and we'll say Bristol and Hull and Blackburn Rovers, are they good for bringing players through? We'll say, you know, that you won't get in the top with the top team, but these clubs are a good history, good traditional clubs. They bring players through and they learn the basics. And is that good for Ireland? That Irish players at Preston and Blackburn and Hull and Bristol, like clubs like that?
Well, the further up the ladder you are, the better, Paul, in terms of that. Because if you're going out and you're playing Leicester City and you're testing yourself against a DD and you're testing yourselves against Jamie Vardy and Inacho and players like this. It's proven top drawer players. It's going to have a massive effect. No disrespect, but if you're going down and you're playing League Two and you're playing Oxford or you're playing Carlisle or something, it's a different ball game than playing Leeds and Leicester. So if you're in the second tier, the Championship, the likelihood is that every second to every third week you're going to have a competitive game. In terms of that, it's the worry that we as Irish supporters and Irish soccer fans, is a young talented player and he's in the Premier League in terms of that, and he is made available for loan, that he maybe goes down to League One or League Two where he's popped up on loan rather than getting on loan in the Championship. So while you like to see the Irish players learn their trade in the Premier League, if they get loans to Championship clubs or get loans to domestic clubs in terms of France or Holland, then in terms of First League, but
Jim,
the worry is when a player drops down to League Two or League
Jim,
One.
I mean, a name there, Andrew Morden. He's at Blackburn Rovers. Now, I believe he's actually owned by Brighton, but I believe in loan in Blackburn. He was at under-21s. Stephen Kinney brought him in there just before he finished up. Is he a promising player, Andrew Morden? He's playing at Blackburn Rovers, and of course, he's playing with Sammy Smollett there in Blackburn.
He is, but he reminds me so much of Callum O'Dowda, was deemed another sort of real promising sort of bright spark, and showed flashes, showed bits of potential, but never really the consistency. So more from what I've seen about him, it's whether he's sort of a flashy type player, but consistency would be the major sort of question that you'd have for him in terms of producing back-to-back performances on a regular basis, something that you couldn't really label against Sammy Smudges, who's been doing it over a consistent time. Moore has the potential. It's just a case of doing it more on a consistent, regular basis.
Yeah, and Jim, Southampton there now, you have the goalkeeper Gavin Bazzuno, but you also have Will Smallbone. Now, they were very poor in the Premiership last year, but they're back in the other way in the top of the Championship. They might get the playoffs, maybe try and get up. But Southampton, of course, as we know, have a great history of bringing two great young players, bringing them through. So will Smallbone and Bazzuno, will that be a great to maybe be in contention for promotion with Southampton this year?
Well, I suppose I'm personally just speaking, just my own personal opinion. I'm not the biggest Will Smallbone fan. In terms of that, I just think in terms of he can be bossed and dominated in the middle of the park. He doesn't impose himself or dictate himself in terms of the game, in terms of his physique. And I think he was a Stephen Kinney sort of a favourite sort of disciple of his, but not really, personally, not my cup of tea. I think Bazzuno is definitely Ireland's first choice keeper for the numerous years to come. And he's got that bit of Darren Randolph in him in terms of that ability to make top draw saves. And I've been a fan of Bazzuno now for a while, and I think definitely he's the future for Southampton in goals for the next 6 or 7 years anyway. So
now, Jim, just before we finish up with that, is there any other player now that you might know left field? Have you come across? I know you're doing interviews with managers in the Championship, or maybe even down the League One, but particularly the Championship that we haven't mentioned. Maybe a young player, maybe a player that might be qualified. Have you anything left field there before we finish up, or have you any thoughts?
Yeah, there's a player out in Italy who's just moved, a youngster. He was Ireland under-19 international, under-17. He was with Inter Milan for a number of years, but he's just left Inter Milan now. He's 19 and he's joined Roma on loan. Kevin Sifi. He was a former Bohemian players. A number of clubs were after him for a while, and he went out to Italy to further his development, and he was on the Inter Milan under-17, under-21 teams, and now he's decided to himself to make the next step, and he's Roma have bought him in this transfer window. So he's gone down to Roma to learn his trade, and Roma are probably more bringing players through from the underage academies and players through the system, rather where Inter Milan probably going for domestic titles and going for maybe a Champions League. In terms of that, their sort of opportunities are scared. But when you're learning your trade in your Serie A, and you've Inter Milan in your CV, and now you're going to Roma as well. It's a great sort of learning curve for any player to sort of go that sort of route, because you're getting exposed to a different technical level of football. So if he progresses and he makes his debut for the Roma, for the starting team before the end of the year under new coach Daniel De Rossi, if we have a player playing in the capital of Italy